Welcome to Coffee for Samso. We're here today at the University of Western Australia at the University Club. We've got Andrew Radonjic here today with us from Venture Minerals Limited. The ASX code is VMS. Current market cap is 39.9 million and current share price is 1.8 cents. So, Andrew, welcome.
No, good to be back.
2024, it's all about Jupiter now. Can you give us a update? What's happening?
Well, we just put out a release just recently with some, I suppose, record. That's record for the project. Neodymium and praseodymium intersection of over 5,000 ppm. So that coupled with that record drill intersection, and we talk about record in that case for Australia wide for a clay-hosted rare earth drill intersection of 48 metres at just over 3,000 ppm. Is certainly delivering lots of positive high-grade results as we do more infill drilling. So I think, looking at the more holes we drill, the better results we get, which is always a great sign for a project's going to yield. It's 1,000 metre by 500 metre drill spacing that we've got that we completed before Christmas. And we're just waiting for the last batch of results to come through now. So, Jupiter's just panning out quite nicely. Look at the map, you can see lots of magenta dots on our map there, lots of drill intersections, lots of consistency, over the 40 square kilometre target. So, like I say to people, you can do the maths, it's 40 square kilometres times, let's say, 20 metres at 2,000 ppm, over 2,000 ppm, and you've got a world-class asset.
I mean, if you look at figure 1, that's what you're referring to, the magenta. For exploration geologists, that's the color that you like to see, the high-grade stuff. But mate, it is quite consistent, right? I mean, I want to emphasize that because when you look at that map, you almost can draw a long bow and say, mate, it's all the same. That must give you guys a lot of confidence in terms of the next drilling phase.
Oh, it certainly does, and we've provided cross sections for the first time now. We're starting to get a fair bit of data there in Figure 5 of that announcement. But look, what we'd like to see, some people say this is a little bit boring, but some people like to see, is keep producing the same results.
Yep.
And that is going to make a sign off on a maiden resource much more easier to do. And we've been talking to a group that we want to go and get the resource calculations done. We'd like to get some metallurgical pathway done before we get that resource out. And what we'll do is we'll push ahead with a follow-up drill program. And probably drill down to about a 500 by 250 metre spacing. So we've got a program that's imminent with 300 drill holes, which for a 60 metre average deep hole, is about 15,000 metres of air core. So that's about to start. So produce those results, put in the lab, get them back, QA, QC, and then look at doing the resource and have that the initial MET program sort of running parallel to that.
I mean, I've talked to a lot of companies with rare earth projects over especially the last couple of years. But how do you think Jupiter differ? And I've asked you this question a few times, but how do you think it differ from the rest of the projects in Australia or Brazil? Because that seems to be the benchmark at this point.
Well, certainly in terms of Australia, and the reason we're even drilling is because we wanted to achieve, which we did in the first program, achieve scale and grade. And even when we did that now, so results on the 1st of August, we were getting 45 metres at 1,500 ppm with a higher grade core of 10 to 15 metres running over 2,000 ppm. So that sort of ticked the box, and it's continued to tick those boxes. And so we think we've got that nailed in terms of Australia. I think we'll get the scale. This will be the biggest clay-hosted rare earth deposit just in Jupiter. And let me point to the fact on the 1st of August, we announced drill holes 10 kilometres north of Jupiter with the same grade. In fact, one of the better results came from north of Jupiter, outside of the geophysical anomaly. But we think that getting the grade and the tonnes, we've got that pretty much nailed. So we'll have an asset which will tick that box. And I think that's really what we're trying to be focused on, in addition to the fact we're so well located, sitting between the plants, the refinery being built by Iluka, using the mineral sands product, which generally speaking has got uranium thorium in it. So they got, they may want to dilute it down by adding our low uranium thorium product. And then we have our friends there at Mount Weld, the Linus, who've been out there saying we're looking for clay hosted deposits because they want more of that sort of heavies and magnet rare earths in their mix. And hence when we're mentioning samarium, recent announcement is sort of a little bit around that as well, because of its importance in terms of defence applications, as well as being in nuclear reactors, which is because uranium is obviously getting a bit more popular, but it's more of those defence applications for that. So we're trying to provide a product which can fit into either of those scenarios, and that's what we'll be aiming for. And I think, so the location, in terms of being trucking distance within those two operations, we're 300 kilometres from Port of Geraldton, which is next to it, we have a bitumen road running through our tenement. We have a gas pipeline. So if we want to build a standalone, that opportunity still presents itself. Where do we produce a concentrate and truck it? Early days. We do not know the answer. But we think that everyone talks about the met being very important, which is correct. And everyone seems to be, the market seems to be very ionic focused. But clearly those two projects have got no ionic and they've been built. So we'll be building. So that's not the be all and end all. And the great thing about the location is, unlike our Brazilian friends, we don't have people living on the ore body or next door to it. Now, they've got a capital city and an airport sitting not too far from where they're drilling. So, those sort of things. Brazil's going to obviously present a much greater sovereign risk than Western Australia. You can have a look at the Fraser Institute if you like and see where Western Australia is ranked. And as a consequence, we think that is the compelling argument against, for an investor to look at the Brazilian scenario or look at the West Australian scenario. And it's not just purely about met, it's about a lot of other things. But certainly, our belief is that, that their 409 million tonnes that Meteoric got at 2600 ppm is, dare I say it, easily achievable in this maiden resource of ours. So I think that's what really is what that's what we get out of bed every morning. We're pretty excited about the project, and it just seems to tick a lot of boxes. But until we've got that grade, the tonnes, location, and all the other certainly we're not getting any permitting hang-ups at this stage. There's no flora and fauna has been identified out there, and there's no on the cultural and heritage side of things. Well, there was a claim, but there's no claim standing across the Jupiter project as we speak.
That's quite significant in that sense as well.
Yeah, so we've gone through the permitting sagas in Tasmania, and Tasmania is obviously a different kettle of fish compared to the Midwest or Western Australia. It's flat versus hilly versus thick vegetation versus hardly any vegetation. So, and plus it's in a great mining jurisdiction, tier 1 jurisdiction in Western Australia. So, look, it compares, and that's very important to us. Every company, before it invests shareholders' money, needs to be thinking about that, and we think we're ticking all those boxes.
I guess in terms of the market, the market is not very sexy at the moment, and even for the rare earth sector, it's even sadder in some ways. But you guys have got a lot of excitement in the market for your stock, for your story. I'm kind of gathering some of the reasons, but what's happening there? Why are you guys getting all the attention when everyone's beating the market in general? If I dare may say.
Look, I think record-breaking results is part of that. I think people are recognising this, the world-class potential of this discovery. It's going to take a little while to all sink in. Obviously, the met continues to be a focus, but I think everyone, just based on grade and scale, have jumped on board, and I think that's why people want to be part of a new successful discovery, especially a local story, and I think that's why people have been buying the stock. It's we've been putting results out since August, so but there was a bit of a hiatus there of drilling whilst we did the geophysical work. Yeah, look, yeah, it's performed very well. We're very happy, and we did that raising at 0.0075, and we reached 2.75 cents. So it's sort of, it's had a great run, and I think huge amount of volume. Yeah, as soon as we get institutions and starting to recognise this asset, then and there's some solid buying and with long-term holds, I think that'll tighten the stock up even a bit more.
Look, you guys kind of reminds me of when Julimar came on. It was like world class stuff, and that kind of was created the impetus in the market. Although we haven't seen the same, but same as when Hemi came along, and that was like a massive discovery. Then recently we got the Andover 100 meters at 1% kind of stuff that created. Whereas, as I said, I've looked at a lot of these projects over the last 2 years, and first thing that came to me was, your grade's consistently high, and your length of intercepts is 40, 50, 60 meters, 75 meters, which is magnitudes over the 20s that you see everywhere else. I think that's quite interesting because as we were talking, I was looking at your section, and it's very compelling in some ways. I'm not trying to spook the stock, but you guys must have sit back and going, hang on, we must have something different. Is that where you guys are thinking?
Look,
Different to whatever's been out there.
Look, I think the consistencies have been a big tick. The scale of it, those cross sections are, one's 5.5 kilometres long, one's 6, one's
It's like
7.
a coal seam.
It's just it's a bit hard to actually to even plot it, and I think the scale is something which people will struggle a little bit with it, and I think it's a huge advantage. Like I had somebody come up to me and go, how are you going to permit a 40 square kilometre pit? And I said to them, it's a bit like eating an elephant, one bite at a time.
Yeah.
We don't need mine something which is 1.5, 2 billion tonnes on day one. No, we just mine maybe 100 million tonnes, focus on the best 100, and that could be around those, those record-breaking drill intersections, hole 74, where you got, or even around a 2% intersection we've got. We're going to get more of those. We're going to infill around those, and all of a sudden you might have dare I say it, 1 square kilometre out of 40, which is just where you're going to go and put your starter pit, and that's your first 10 years production. And I think that's what people maybe are struggling with it. It's big. It's a great name as a scale, but if you think about Jupiter and the red eye, you can sort of draw the comparison and say, well, there's a geophysical anomaly, and yet as we go outside, we've still got another 950 square kilometres. And we know there's an intersection 10 kilometres away, and we've got to go out there and drill some holes to keep the expenditure up. So we'll probably go out there and drill some holes soon, and we may turn up something else. We don't know. So hence, it's a very I think people are struggling with a scale, but I think people are just starting to get on. We're trying to feed the market with information that allows them to draw those conclusions, and that's why I use that very simple calculation. People can do that. And I think very much, people will go, well, hang on, it's market cap's 39 million, meteorics 10 times that. It's in Australia, that's in Brazil. We know how to punters like a local story, particularly in Western Australia. So yeah, I think it's about that, but it's still a slow burn, and we still think we're heavily undervalued at this stage.
I think this kind of projects, and I've said this in the past, it needs to be something different, and it has to be big enough. I kind of wonder whether this is the one that's big enough. As well, you haven't drilled it out, and we all know, don't count your chickens before they hatch and all that kind of stuff. But you got to look at this. It's by far the biggest potential that I've talked about. I think and a lot of people say they've got this and that, but comparatively, just even the depth of intercept is 3 times more in some ways. Which again comes back to what you're saying.
You mean the width, not the depth?
Yeah. So in terms of met, I mean, does that keep you stressed thinking? Because in some ways, the met story is almost done to death because everyone seems to be coming up with the same numbers. You're only going to get better numbers, and I don't see too many worse numbers.
Well, look, if you look at it logically, and I've said this before, we're in Western Australia. You've got to compare what's around you and what's even in Australia. And there's not a lot of ionic sitting out there in WA, or in maybe there is some, but I think the guys in South Australia got an ionic project, ARE, but the grade is sort of like, I think, 800 ppm or something like that. But, you know, there's a whole range of different combinations, what percentage of magnetic rare earths you got in there. And certainly, and the ease of the leachability, and whether it's, you know, lower acid and hence using ammonium sulfate. And each project will have different reasons for why it may work. But, you know, the way I look at Jupiter is that one is we've got big intersections, and we might have near the surface some ionic material, and we might have, dare I say it, 100 million tonnes out of potentially 1.5 billion tonnes might be ionic. And that might be where you start first. So we've got to do a lot of work because one is the scale, and we've just engaged a PhD geologist specialised in geomet to look at making sure we've got representative data, you know, work done throughout the geology is going to change. It's going to go from extremely weathered to saprolite or transitional material, and the grades are going to sit, some's going to sit here, some's going to sit up here, and you've got to optimize all that and get recoveries. And so there's a fair bit of work to do, and it's about the recoveries of the magnetic rare earths as well. So you know, a lot of our competitors have got, you know, they're throwing hydrochloric acid at it, or sulfuric acid, or they're doing this pH or that pH, or they're doing even a blend with the you know, with the ammonium sulfate. So there's a whole range of things, and that'll sort of govern what you got to optimize that to get the operating costs down. And then once you've worked out what it is, then you can rate which intersections are better. So it might be lower grade but better recovery, for example, closer to the surface, and that will optimize better. So there's a lot of work to be done. But like I say to people, it's a little bit like, well, you know, if you can have ionics to start off with and then sell to our neighbours the products they want, it might be the case that we do something like that. I don't know. There's a lot of work to be done, and that's why we knew we had to employ somebody to be diligent to get that work done. And Natalie, who's based in Tasmania, funnily enough, but has been working in WA. You know, she looks fairly competent. We're very confident she can go and get the job done, and as a consequence, start getting that test work done. Look at things like beneficiation, acid leaching, a whole range of things. The mineralogy is super important. So we're getting the mineralogy, and if we can get the species of the rare earth, 1 or 2, or is it coarse, is it fine grained? But, you know, we've got lots of work done by Linus that we might be able to lean into, and there'll be the project that Aluka have, and I think it's more about the thorium uranium, but they might be, you know, chasing, you know, because they've obviously invested in Northern Minerals after dysprosium, and, you know, is that the key element for them, or praseodymium? What are they chasing? And it's a bit about working that out. So we want to try and arm ourselves now with people who are experts in rare earths. You know, we are chasing a new chair, and we're hoping to sort of get the board a little bit more beefed up in terms of rare earth experience and network and connections. Philippa Legger joined us in October, and she's worked with some rare earth companies, so that that provides us one avenue, but by getting a chair, maybe we have the opportunity to increase our intelligence in the market, in the rare earth market. What sort of supply, what sort of product, what should venture focus on? And the great thing about it, because of the scale, we've got so many things to look at, and we only need a portion of that, of Jupiter, to yield that. And so it's not about making the whole project ionic, or the whole project something that's suitable to go in the Mount Weld plant, or it'll probably be a combination of things, and it'll just take, because of the scale, a little bit of time to unravel. So we're hoping to get, inform the market of sort of our initial thoughts, before the maiden resource.
Okay. Hey, look, I guess at the end of the day, all this talk is all academic if we don't have a rare earth market. So what do you think could lift this rare earth market? Andrew's words of wisdom.
Look, the rare earth market is something that we're all learning a lot about. Obviously, our friends at Linus are well ahead of the curve in terms of the understanding. But we noted down at lows, and we're talking about, I think it's the prices have come back almost back to what they were pre-COVID. For neodymium, praseodymium, all of them are like that pretty much. And there is confidence that will bounce back. A lot of that's around the need for production of electric vehicles, the permanent magnets. There are defense applications, which I spoke about previously. So everyone's predicting there will be an upswing in terms of, demand. But, as our friend at BlackRock said, it's more about supply. And yes, I do understand it, and we'll both work together anyway, but it's very much not about global supply, but non-Chinese supply. And that's because we're getting a market that's sort of splitting. Can we generate a product that we could export to the US? Can we generate, or do we just simply generate a product which we just truck to Mount Weld, and then, they're talking about going to US anyway. So why go down that scale? Why go down that same pathway? Maybe we have to. Hopefully we don't. Hopefully it's just simply a concentrate the product and truck it to Mount Weld scenario. So, but it's I think that different market is where it all of a sudden supply, if you chop out China, then there's a big change. And I think that is still that geopolitical risk that's happening, that tension between the two. Call it a Cold War if you like. And the Americans want to decouple themselves from China. So they're actually producing product in the US, ideally sourced from Australia. And I think that's where Linus are heading down that path. So that's my view. Of course, time will tell on that. But that's sort of what we're looking at.
Okay. What's a lot of investors out there, we touched on this early on about, people supporting the stock and trading the stock, things like that. A lot of investors will be out there thinking, oh, geez, there's a lot of support for, venture and the Jupiter story, and it's rare earth. Why is that so? What could you say to these guys, if they were looking to position or reposition themselves in this sector again? I mean, what could be that phrase or series of things that needs to be ticked for that confidence to come in for them?
Yeah, look, I've mentioned it before, but clearly, the tons, the grade, the consistency, the location, the permittability, if that's such a word, of the project. These are the things that people will tend to look for. They may be agnostic in terms of commodity. Clearly, the rare earths have come off, like a lot of other metals. And will there be bounce up? People are thinking yes. So they want to position themselves whilst the prices are a bit soft. and think, okay, well, let's find a quality asset to do it in, a quality stock. And so eventually we put up against all the other rare earths in Australia. And remember, we're a little bit behind the game. You know, it'd be good if we found this 3 or 4 years ago, but it's a little bit behind. But it's quick drilling. We're only drilling down to hard rock. We're drilling, you know, got 300 holes to drill. We're probably drilling 6 a day on average. That's what we've experienced from before. And you'll get through that very quickly. Put a second rig on there doing 12 holes a day. Third rig, it's 18 holes. You know, sort of, you'll run through those holes quickly, and it's cheap. So this first part, to get that first tons grade, some early you get a metallurgical pathway, and all of a sudden you are in the territory of people who can then sort of value you, you know. And you know, we had that research report done by East Coast Research, putting a, you know, a range of I think it was 2.7 to 3.1, 2.7 to 3.1 cents. We hit the 2.7, and that was before the resource. So we'll get an update on that report when the resource comes out. But and I think investors are going to say, okay, well, Venture's got this. Well, looks like potentially one of the best projects around in terms of the rare earth sector. You know, and all else fails, they've got a whole bunch of other projects. At the end of the day, there's a lot of optionality about Venture. It always has been. And we are very truly diversified, but we are fully focused on Jupiter because we know that's going to deliver for shareholders the biggest, you know, price appreciation over this year at least. And you know, and as we step through and start going from, you know, inferred resource, can you do scoping studies? Can you do the next drilling? Go to indicated resource and start talking about reserves, and then you start getting the engineering involved, more permitting, to look at all the permitting aspects. Then it starts getting pretty serious very quickly. But this first pass is just going to give people a sense of what. So to me, running a calculation out to you and you working it out yourself, we're actually going to, you know, put a JORC compliant resource behind it, independently signed off, and then people will then get it. So they're going to set themselves up. But I think we're hearing that people believe that the rare earths will go up, and I think they're positioning themselves, and I think they want to go. And if you're going to position yourself, it's a bit like gold. As gold goes up, you want to be with the lowest cost producer who just prints gold day in, day out, and they will go up because they are a quality stock. They always will. And that's the cream will rise to the top first, and that's where we want to set Jupiter or Venture Minerals at. So all of a sudden, when they want a rare earth stock, they go to VMS rather than all the other ones that sit out there in the market. There's lots of them, and a lot of them have the different issues: grade, tons, access. You know, the farms down near Esperance Way are a very good example of that, where people are just drilling along tracks. You know, haven't come to the problem of drilling on the farm yet. So, you know, big issues down there, you know. So, yeah, that's what we think we stand out because of all the reasons already outlined previously.
Yeah, I think what you need is to get a Chinaman as your chairman, and he'll just dig it up. Don't worry about the resource, mate. Just get the digger and dig it up, mate.
Dig it up and just pour acid over it.
Yeah. Look, you know, what is happening with the other projects?
Well, look, there's a few things are in motion. You know, such as at Mount Lindsay, we got Curtin involved. So we've got a couple of postgrads, hydromet. We're on there working on the Mount Lindsay core. One in Bentley, here in Perth, and the other in Kalgoorlie. So it's School of Mines there. So it's so they've been, you know, they're rolling their sleeves up and getting stuck into it. So hopefully we'll get some results not too far down the track later this year, and start getting some indications of whether that those bore rates. We know obviously the first lot of results are very interesting from CSIRO, very promising, but hopefully they start to pull together some again a metallurgical pathway of trying to extract the tin and the iron and produce a boric acid or a saleable boron product, which we can then sell. And then if we can produce that saleable product, then we can re-optimize Mount Lindsay underground operations and come up with what we think will be a much larger reserve. So that's great positive, adding more revenue stream to Mount Lindsay, and then re-optimize it when that's completed. But that's that's in the hands of the curtains guys. So that'll run through its time frame. The other thing which have been active is we're running through a process on the Riley iron ore mine. Even as prices have pulled back a little bit, just under 120. The exchange rate is still very favourable. So we're running through a process there with Argonaut PCF at the moment. So again, we sort of set that on a pathway. So that'll come to its own conclusion, and hopefully we'll be able to either get a partner or try and start to bring some of that value out of Riley, which is sitting there, obviously there at the moment. So those are probably the main two. And then we've got joint ventures, which Chalice are working on our Southwest JV. And lately they've identified some lithium targets, which we spoke about in the quarterly briefly, and they're still trying to get ready to drill the nickel copper PG targets they've identified down there. Obviously, we'd like to see that done before winter comes in, start drilling some holes there. And 9 months ago we did a JV with Samso, which has had a bit of a reconstruction with becoming Premier 1 Lithium. So they've been delayed a little bit by that, but we're going to see them become very active. And of course, part of our earning is to drill that Vulcan really high grade rare earth target running up with rock chips of 12.5% total rare earth oxide. So no, they'll start getting active, and they're all obviously both of them are free carried. So they'll generate news flow as well when information comes in, and that kind of leaves just cooling. That the only thing that hasn't, we're doing some work on there too, but a little bit low key, because we've got so much activity happening at Jupiter at the moment, and that's our focus. But as with Venture, there's lots going on, and you may see an announcement on those other non-Jupiter projects, if you like, at any time, depending when that work is done.
I mean, lots of projects, lots of news, but what's the immediate potential news flow for VMS that is going to be the one that's going to bring the stock from 1.8 to whatever?
Well, certainly more drill results, and certainly the first 2 batches. And we've got one more batch to come from that program, the stage 1 program we completed pre-Christmas. And that will, this is obviously news flow from that. The stage 2 program, which we've spoken about, that'll be starting shortly. And then, because if you've got 300 holes you're drilling, then you're going to have the first lot and generate results, and so there'll be a whole bunch of results coming out on that. And then there'll obviously be something coming out on where we're heading with the Met as well. So probably over the next 2 to 3 months until that first initial JORC resource comes out, the maiden resource comes out. Lots of news flow, lots of results, just at Jupiter. So fairly active. So I think it's just on that alone, I think investors will have a great opportunity to see share price appreciation.
You guys cashed up from the race and things like that?
Yes, we did a raise just before Christmas, raised a couple of $1 million. Obviously, those investors have done very well out of that. And we then got an R&D
Oh, yes, that's right.
refund of $1 million, and our Acuity facility also raised $1 million.
Okay.
So we've added 2 to the coffers. So we're sort of sitting at $3.5 million at this stage before we run into this next program. So, obviously the drilling will take a good chunk of that. Not all of it, but we were actually quite well funded. We were funded before those 2 cash amounts came in, and obviously the network. So we're pretty well positioned, considering a lot of our competitors.
Look, I guess Andrew, it's a good story. I think the guys out there should have a good look at it. I mean, as I said, it's one of those rare earth stories that's very different. Everyone's different, but this one's could be the one that helps the sector in general. I mean, it is very different to the rest I've spoken to. But you know, time will tell. Andrew, thank you for your time. Any last words to get those guys to jump in and say, look, you know, 1.8 is a good price?
Well, I'll use that old real estate sales pitch: location, 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 and I'll probably leave it at that, because that is probably the most important. A little bit above scale and grade, but which you obviously need, and you need all three. But location is, for us, is the compelling thing about this project, and we'll leave it at that.
Oh, I think I have to agree. Anyway, thank you, Andrew, again. So we'll wait for your news and we'll follow up the updates.
Excellent. Pleasure as always.
All right, thank you.